And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Here is our preview. Yes, is Oscar now the favourite for the F1 title? Will Max Verstappen win another race? Is George Russell the MVP so far of 2025? Notice we've not mentioned Lando or either Ferrari driver, but still, who is going to go into the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix the most confident? We'll certainly discuss that. Who needs to improve the most? Who's under pressure? Yes, here comes Saudi Arabia. So here we go. It is now race week for the third time in a row. Yep, I know some people would like an F1 race every weekend. I don't think the drivers or the mechanics would though. But nevertheless, if they are, as entertaining as the Bahrain Grand Prix or the Australian Grand Prix, that could be quite all right with us. No more Japanese Grand Prix though. Although Japan, fantastic track, it just the race. Anyway, moving on, because hopefully Saudi Arabia you can overtake. It might be a bit harder than Bahrain, but there is absolutely most certainly hope. These are the UK time, so the race is off at 6 on the Sunday, Easter Sunday. No doubt with qualifying on the Saturday. Again at 6 till 7. Now, practice 1 is on Good Friday in the UK, 2:30 to 3:30, then 6 till 7 practice 2. Once again, kind of like Bahrain, practice 1. Is it really going to mean much? No, because it pretty much takes place in the day, like in Bahrain and like in Singapore, that first practice session. But practice 2, as you can see, it's the qualifying start and the race start time. That's going to be absolutely relevant, and it is a really fast street track. If you make a mistake here, you're more than likely your race is over and you are going to be in the wall. Now, when you look at track time, 8 o'clock local time is the race start, qualifying 8 till 9 local time. Again, obviously the same date, 19th and 20th, and on the Good Friday, practice 1 at 4:30 to 5:30. It's basically kind of like a couple of hours ahead of here in the UK. One thing though, going into this weekend, I thought was quite interesting. This is from the Lights Out blog. Things to think about. We have 6 wins from pole. Will we get 6 wins from pole in a row? We've had 5 so far, including, I believe, the sprint race. Albon, is he going to move ahead of Rosberg? He will, obviously, if he starts, move ahead of Rosberg in the Williams starts list. Piastri to equal the 4th longest winning streak if he wins. The 4th longest winning streak. Well, maybe. You never know. Verstappen to move up the all-time points list. Yeah, this is quite interesting. And more from the we're going to definitely get into the Lights Out blog. This is the total Grand Prix laps completed so far in the Formula 1 season. And it's 446. And really, only 1, 2, 3, 4 teams have done it. Obviously, with both their teammates. Red Bull is next up on 434. The least amount is Aston Martin at 368. Yes, they have Lance Stroll, but let's be fair, Lance Stroll is at the moment, statistically speaking at least, the most successful driver when compared to Fernando Alonso. Next up is obviously Williams. Yeah, Racing Bulls, that one have a lot to do with poor Isaac Hadjar in those Racing Bulls, and Alpine as well. Yeah. So there we go. So let's then go and have a look at the track, shall we? And welcome. This is this is behind me actually, the wallpaper. It's the 2021 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, the one that Lewis Hamilton won. It was slightly controversial. We're not going to get into that though. We are here to talk about the track, and let's talk about that track, shall we? The Saudi Arabia. This is pretty much a rip from F1 2024. So. Yeah, as you can see, it is a street circuit, but unlike Singapore, it is a very fast street circuit. It has it's in Jeddah. It has a massive amount of turns. You'll see this in a second. It has, I think, 3 DRS zones. As you can see, there's obviously, as with all things, 3 sectors, and yes, there are 3 DRS zones, which, like Australia, look at all those corners. 27 corners in total. Absolutely insane. So let's then have a look at the actual track itself. I've purposely now, for the track guide, I'm just going to pause it here and make myself disappear for a bit. As the track guide, what I have done this time is I have I've made ourselves disappear, and I've put on the racing line. Now, as we are coming up, we're coming up This is the other DRS end. We're coming up to the final corner. Now, this is famously where Max Verstappen did his whoops-a-daisy in 2021 on what could have been the lap of his life. But anyway, you want to get a really nice early exit here. And once again, another DRS end. You have sometimes seen, we have 3 abreast here, kind of like in Bahrain. I don't think it's quite as wide. You can get 3 cars abreast. It's really, really important first corner. Lots of people go wide trying to overtake it. You can go on the inside and the outside, but then the other guy can battle back because, you know, it's kind of like one of those weird chicanes, but full bananas again. We have seen people pass into here, but it doesn't really happen. This is full of like lefts and rights. It is, as you can see, absolutely really fast. I'm not even going to bother counting those corners, but it is all sweeping. So if your car goes well in Japan because of all these sweeping corners, there's a chance it's going to go well here, which is good for Max Verstappen and Red Bull, because let's be fair, they were all at sea in Bahrain. You kind of see some passes here. We've had I believe a couple of clashes. It is banked here, so which also means you can get on that power super early. And yeah, not much braking. Bahrain was very hard on the brakes. This circuit, not so much, as we are now powering down, I think, towards, I believe it is the second or third DRS zone. So, and if you remember, it was in the second half of the lap where Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen came together, let's say, didn't they? When Max had to let Lewis, but I believe it was kind of around here. I could be wrong though. But anyway, as we are now kind of getting towards that last corner on the power nice and easy. We want to be smooth, because if you're not smooth, you are going to lose all of that time down the pit straight. And I mean, let's be fair, you most certainly do not want that absolutely whatsoever. So that's a lap around the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, which is not too bad. But there we go. So let's talk. Let's now shift gears and talk about our drivers, shall we? The F1 drivers. The F1 drivers coming into not the Bahrain Grand Prix, coming into the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, even, if you will. So first up, we've got Hulkenberg. This is kind of like where the driver ratings finished in Bahrain. I've kept them the same. So Nico Hulkenberg. The thing is, when you're in the Stake F1 team at the moment, with Audi obviously taking them over, I don't think there's any pressure. The only pressure Hulkenberg's got, he's kind of got to beat Bortoletti. And he has done the last couple of races. Obviously, not, you know. He was disqualified the last time around, but he was still ahead. So there we go, Nico Hulkenberg. In terms of pressure, though, I've not updated it still. But Liam Lawson, who is in the V-Carb, not the Red Bull. I have done it, but obviously I've not saved it. But Liam Lawson, who is in the V-Carb, I can assure you, he's not done particularly well since his demotion. He's still under pressure, and he needs to do well. This is a weekend where he will be under pressure again, but it is a very difficult circuit, I think. And then after that, we go to, is it Imola, I believe, or Miami, one of the two. But this is a very difficult circuit. But he kind of he starts on the same level, or maybe, you know, because with Hadjar. So it's going to be really interesting to see whether him or Hadjar are going to do well. Next up, we have Bortoletti, who, to be fair, bearing in mind the Stake F1 team, you know, the soon-to-be Audi team is one of the worst cars at the moment. I don't think he's going to be under any pressure at all. This guy, though, he was looking really, really good, wasn't he, in Bahrain? And then he had a disastrous race. It may have been the car. I think there's a fair amount of pressure on Carlos Sainz to do well. Even if he doesn't beat Alex Albon, he kind of has to match him, I think, within a tenth or two. But as we know, 1/10 can, is the difference between like 11th and potentially 15th, 16th. At the moment, as close as it is. Now, Lance Stroll, the man who had an absolutely fantastic start, Aston Martin, they are absolutely at sea, aren't they, with their car? They're absolutely nowhere. And boy, oh boy, does both, I think, Lance Stroll and this man here, Fernando Alonso, need to improve. But the problem is, if they don't have the car, now, you know, Fernando Alonso, he hasn't lost, like Lewis Hamilton, I don't think he's lost any speed overnight, let's say. But he must be getting frustrated with the team. But I think he's hanging on there in the hope that they're going to have an absolutely fantastic car for 2026. And fingers crossed. Now, Jack Doohan, he's an interesting one, because we reported on Jack Doohan after Bahrain that the team was quite happy with him, and it's looked like they're not going to get rid of him in the next few races at the very least, in spite of what Flavio Briatore has said. But I just ignore what Flavio Briatore has said, and you'll probably be doing quite well. And I think give him another go at Saudi Arabia. I'm hoping in the next 2 or 3 races. There was some suggestion that he has up until Miami, but the next 2 or 3 races, I'm hoping he does. I'm hoping he does quite well. As this guy here, many people, it's either him or Kimi Antonelli, the 2 rookies of the year. Both of them are doing absolutely amazing. But I think, bearing in mind he had less preparation, I think, than Kimi Antonelli, I'm more impressed with Isaac Hadjar and what he has done. All being equal, yes, the whoops-a-daisy in Australia, the very unhelpful, let's say, comments by Helmut Marko. I'm really impressed as how he has come after that weekend and really shown us absolutely what he can do. So next up we've got Alexander Albon. I guess just kind of like more of the same. He was all right in Bahrain. I think the Williams is going to be there or thereabouts in the top 10 or just fighting outside the top 10. So points, most certainly. I think Alex is most certainly going to be aiming for those points. But the next guy is going to be hopefully aiming for more than points. Yeah, this guy, I would say he's one of the most under pressure now, because there's been lots of question marks. There's been lots of chinks in Lando Norris's arm. And as we said at the beginning of the show, is Lando Norris now not the favourite? We all said Lando Norris favourite going into 2025. He's got the best car. He just about had Oscar Piastri under control, but it's now the opposite. It seems that Oscar Piastri has had a winter of wonderment, and we have Oscar Piastri 3.0, his 3rd year in Formula 1, and he's really I'm not saying he's showing up Norris, but he's very much a danger to Norris, unlike he was last year. Now, when we looked at Saudi Arabia last year, I do believe he was more comfortable with Norris in the car. And with Lando Norris saying he's not comfortable in the car, that most certainly is quite the concern going into the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix weekend. Yeah, Lando Norris, he needs a good weekend. And when I say good weekend, he needs to beat Piastri, I think, for that psychological edge. I think mentally it would appear that Oscar Piastri is stronger than Lando Norris, at least of what we've seen so far this year. Or Lando Norris does like to poo on himself, so to speak, in the interviews. He's just really, really hard on himself, which is fine. But then I don't know what that does for you mentally. It's not very good. It's not very nice at all, is it, for Lando? But there we go. That's our thoughts on Lando. Next up, we've got Pierre Gasly, the point scorer. More of the same. What is that Alpine going to be like, though? It was good in Bahrain, and we all thought them and the Williams team are going to be really close, best of the rest. But it's kind of been the Williams and the V-Carb / Racing Bulls that have been best of the rest. And it seems that the Alpine team is more circuit dependent than the others, which I'm not saying it was a surprise, it's just a shame if you are a Pierre Gasly fan. So, Yuki Tsunoda, he scored his first points. No, Yuki Tsunoda is in Red Bull. I'm sorry, I need to change it. I know I've done it, but I just forgot to add it to this video. But Yuki Tsunoda, yes, he is in the Red Bull team. He is Max Verstappen's teammate, and so far he's been more, at least at the last race in Bahrain, he's been more impressive than Max. Bear in mind, that's where the car was quite difficult to handle, and he scored some points, which was brilliant. That's what Red Bull need. And speaking of Max Verstappen, this is Yuki's teammate. There was all this talk about Max being really unhappy with the car. There was talk of, if you watch Ted's Notebook, that Max Verstappen's manager was seen shouting or having, let's just say, an intense debate with Helmut Marko, and about the car. Yeah, I mean, I get it. The car's not particularly good. He wants to win a world championship, but have some decorum, I guess, from his manager. I don't know why he's shouting at Helmut Marko. I don't know what Helmut Marko can do to make the car better. And that's the problem. This season is going to be really fascinating. If Max does not have the car to challenge for the championship, but he most certainly can challenge for some wins, it's going to be really interesting, the mentality that Max has. Now, is he going to leave Red Bull? Is he going to go to Mercedes, for example? Is he going to go to Aston Martin? I don't know. There was a lot of talk that, Toto Wolff would want him, would open his arms for him at Mercedes. But the issue is Max is very expensive. And I'm going to say he's probably 2 to 3 times more expensive than someone like George Russell, even though George Russell is doing absolute gangbusters. Would Toto really want to get rid of Mercedes? You know, they've got two, essentially, bred and born Mercedes juniors in that car, and it seems to be working really well. Putting Max in there could be, you know, a risk. I do think this weekend is going to be much stronger, though, for Max Verstappen, and I feel that if he can't sniff a win, there's most certainly a chance of a podium. And the other question is, when will this man here, Kimi Antonelli, get a podium? Surely it's going to be in the first half of the year. It's going to be in the next few races. Wouldn't it be lovely if it is Imola? In terms of Saudi, it is a very difficult race, so it's going to be really interesting to see how... I'm assuming he's going to be behind George Russell, all things being even, but how close he can get to George Russell. I think it's going to be interesting. And following this man's here, let's be fair, not particularly great qualifying in Bahrain, but he gave through to finish 10th, which was absolutely brilliant. And Ollie Behrman has had experience in a Ferrari in Saudi Arabia, if you remember, and did very well. So I can't wait to see what he is going to do, and whether he's going to beat this man here, Esteban Ocon. That's going to be a massive exclamation mark if he does beat Esteban Ocon at what is a very difficult circuit. And I think he's perfectly capable of it, but so is Esteban Ocon perfectly capable of beating Behrman. It's going to be interesting. I think Haas, kind of like Williams, will be inside the top, like 14, 15, trying to fight for those points. So let's talk about Ferrari. There's all these rumours, all these updates. Did they work? Well, they didn't particularly work that well at Bahrain, but I think the new floor, if, and this is a capital I and F, if that new floor is working, I do think it's going to be working a lot better at Saudi Arabia, that track, rather than Bahrain with all those corners. So it's going to be really interesting for both Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton to see how good that Ferrari is. Now, if Lewis Hamilton can hit the floor running in Saudi Arabia in practice 1 and then in practice 2, at least on the Friday, come out of Friday confident, I think it's going to be really, really good, and he's in for a good race. We know how good he can be in the race, albeit if Leclerc qualifies him, it wouldn't particularly surprise me. But I do predict Ferrari are going to be stronger. Whether they're going to be stronger to challenge this man here, the man that may well be leading the World Championship after Saudi Arabia, after the 3 weeks, it's going to be interesting. So people are now talking about Oscar potentially being the favourite to win the World Championship, and it'd be interesting to see. Maybe we'll have a look come like the Thursday or Friday what the odds are for Oscar Piastri winning that World Championship, because I think they may well be very interesting indeed. But Lando Norris, if he can dig deep, Lando Norris is perfectly capable of beating Oscar, just as it is the other way around. And it's going to be really interesting, not really to see Oscar, to see Lando Norris's mentality. Now, if Lando, but one of these guys is potentially going to be the world champion. I say potentially, it could be somebody else. But it would be difficult to bet against McLaren winning both titles, at the moment at least. So it's going to be really interesting to see both how Lando reacts to this pressure for Oscar, and if Lando is able to put pressure on Oscar, this Iceman persona, will it continue for Oscar when they go into corners, for example, side by side with the race lead and the championship lead potentially on the line? I absolutely can't wait, and I do hope then for that they maybe qualify, one, if it's going to be a McLaren looking good, they qualify 1-2. And we have a ding-dong race. Alternatively, I would probably prefer there to be a couple more teams in the mix, but I guess we shall have to see. And talking about teams in the mix, this man here, I would say he is the MVP, the most valued player of MVR, most valued racer so far of 2025. He has done an absolutely amazing job, has our George, on the podium in every Grand Prix but one. Not quite Japan, and he's in there. He's in with a shout of the points. All Mercedes needs to do is improve that car just a bit, over the next few races, and it could be very interesting indeed. And I think unlike McLaren and like Red Bull, I don't think Kimi Antonelli is going to be in the title hunt, so he could help George Russell like Yuki Tsunoda. Both those McLaren drivers are going to be taking points off each other, which is really interesting. So I think George Russell, definitely, like Verstappen, is in the hunt for a podium. I'm not too sure where the two Ferraris are going to be. They could be if they can get the car setup absolutely right. from the Friday onwards, because they don't really seem, the Ferrari, like Red Bull and Bahrain, they were good, they were solid, but they didn't really improve as much as I thought they would. If you remember when they came to China, they were looking amazing, on the first day and a half, and then it all went a bit petong after the sprint race. So I guess we will have to. We're gonna have to see, aren't we, in relation to that. So who do we think is going to win the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix? Well, I think you've got to go with probably one of the McLaren drivers. I think Verstappen is going to be a lot stronger than he was in Bahrain. Don't be surprised if he's on the podium or even fighting for the win. But kind of like Japan, I still feel it's McLaren's to lose going into at least Saudi Arabia, rather than Red Bull's to win, or even Mercedes to win. But I do predict a McLaren battle. As I said, Oscar had the edge last time around, but I think Lando's going to dig deep, and I do think we're going to have a McLaren 1-2 after qualifying. It's going to be really interesting going into that first corner. I mean, we've had shenanigans before a few times going into that first corner, so we're going to have to see how many shenanigans we're going to have there. So if you made it to the end, please give us a subscribe. That would be absolutely amazing if you could. If you are already subscribed, you just watching this is more than enough for us. But if you want to do a bit more, hit that like button. Comment below. Let us know as well. You know who you are. It makes me laugh every time you do that. But anyway, moving on. We will speak to you soon. Thank you so much for watching. And above all else, stay safe.